heart needs William Shatner's Star Trek return as James T. Kirk, even if my head disagrees. It's hard to explain, but sometimes your heart knows what it wants long before your brain catches up. I've been a Star Trek fan for decades, a lifelong traveler through the stars of imagination, and a constant witness to the franchise's ebbs and flows. The universe of Star Trek has always been about possibilities, the exploration of strange new worlds, the encounter with alien civilizations, and the examination of what it means to be human. Yet, in all of its futuristic optimism, there is one thing my heart has stubbornly clung to: the idea of seeing William Shatner return as James T. Kirk. Before I go any further, I have to admit that my head is not entirely on board. I know the arguments against it. Shatner is 94 years old as of now. His era of Starship Command belongs to a different time, a different narrative cadence, and a different cinematic language. Star Trek has evolved, becoming more serialized, more introspective, more ethically and morally complex. Bringing back a character whose original context was firmly rooted in the bold, sometimes melodramatic optimism of the 1960s feels, to my logical side, like it could risk nostalgia tipping over into gimmickry. And yet, my heart refuses to surrender to logic. My heart says, we need James T. Kirk again. The reasoning my head offers is clear. Kirk's era of Star Trek was the age of the frontier, a place where exploration was more about the thrill of adventure than the nuance of diplomacy. The modern Star Trek landscape, from discovery to strange new worlds, is beautifully introspective but often grounded in the personal and political ramifications of decisions. Would Kirk, with his flair, bravado, and occasional recklessness, really fit into this more contemplative world? My brain says, probably not. It worries about pacing, about tone, about the risk of reducing a beloved icon to a series of references and fan service moments. But my heart doesn't care about pacing or tone. My heart remembers first discovering Shatner's Kirk on a grainy television screen late at night, when the universe seemed infinite and full of possibility. My heart remembers the thrill of watching him stride across the bridge of the USS Enterprise, the universe literally at his fingertips. A man who believed so fully in humanity's potential that he made you believe it too. My heart remembers the way he could be commanding one moment and absurdly human the next. A leader capable of both gravitas and whimsy. There is something fundamentally inspiring about that character, a quality that transcends time. Kirk's courage was not merely about firing phasers first or bluffing his way out of impossible situations. It was about the audacity to make choices that mattered, to stake his moral claim in a universe full of moral ambiguity. In a world where contemporary Star Trek often shows us the consequences of our actions in painstaking, sometimes brutal detail, the return of Kirk would serve as a reminder that boldness, imagination, and courage are still worth celebrating. Perhaps the most compelling reason my heart clings to this desire is the notion of closure, or at least, continuation. The Star Trek franchise has touched countless generations, yet Shatner's Kirk has remained largely frozen in time, immortalized in his films, but absent from the evolving narrative of the new shows. We've seen Spock return multiple times, both in the classic Leonard Nimoy incarnation and in alternate timelines with Zachary Quinto, and each return brings emotional resonance precisely because it bridges the past and the present. A return of Shatner's Kirk would do the same for me personally, for the fans who have aged alongside him, and for the franchise itself, a living, breathing testament to its own enduring legacy. There's also a narrative opportunity here that my head reluctantly concedes is worth exploring. Imagine Kirk not simply as a guest star or a nostalgic cameo, but as a character who has lived decades beyond his prime. He is no longer the impetuous captain. He is seasoned, reflective, and carrying the weight of a life fully lived. Perhaps he has retired somewhere distant, a legend in Starfleet history, quietly observing the new generation of explorers as they navigate the complexities he once faced. The storytelling potential is immense. A meeting between Kirk and Pike, or Kirk and Spock, or even a new crew in which his presence challenges and inspires without overshadowing them. And yes, there is something poetic about the idea of an elderly Kirk navigating a universe that has moved on without him. Star Trek has always been a meditation on time, on progress, and on the human condition. Seeing Kirk, older, wiser, perhaps a touch weary, interact with contemporary Starfleet could offer some of the richest storytelling the franchise has ever attempted. It would remind viewers that heroism doesn't vanish with age, that the values of courage, curiosity, and integrity remain timeless. And for a generation of fans who grew up with Kirk, It would provide an emotional payoff that no reboot or alternate timeline can fully replicate. Of course, there are risks. The portrayal must be respectful, dignified, and narratively justified. It cannot rely solely on nostalgia or cheap fan service. It must honor the character while acknowledging that time has passed. But if handled with care, a return of Shatner's Kirk could elevate Star Trek in ways the franchise rarely dares to do, bridging decades, connecting generations, and proving that some legends never truly fade. One might argue that Star Trek has always been about moving forward, that the franchise thrives when it reinvents itself and explores new horizons. And that is true. Yet, moving forward does not preclude honoring the past. In fact, it is precisely by acknowledging the heroes who came before that a story can gain depth and resonance. Kirk's return would be less about nostalgia and more about continuity, about the enduring impact of one man's vision of exploration, justice, and humanity. My heart is also drawn to the joy that such a return would bring, not just to older fans like me, but to newer viewers who may have only encountered Kirk through books, films, or pop culture references. Seeing Shatner once more inhabit the bridge of the Enterprise would be an event, a rare convergence of legend and present-day storytelling. It would be a reminder that Star Trek is a living mythology, one that accommodates heroes of all eras, allowing them to coexist, interact, and inspire. And yes, my head is still hesitant. It worries about the practicality. Can a man of Shatner's age handle the physical and emotional demands of the role? Will the story be compelling beyond the mere spectacle of seeing Kirk again? Will it respect the modern narrative while satisfying the emotional desire for reunion? These are legitimate concerns. But the heart has a counterargument that is far more persuasive. Sometimes, the value of storytelling is not measured in logistical perfection, but in emotional truth. Seeing Kirk once more is not just about watching a character. It is about reclaiming a piece of ourselves, a piece of the wonder and optimism that Star Trek instilled in us when we were young or when we needed it most. Ultimately, this desire is not purely about nostalgia. It is about continuity, about courage, about connection. It is about the idea that legends do not die. They evolve, they endure, and they inspire. My heart insists that the universe still needs James T. Kirk, not as a gimmick or a relic, but as a living, breathing testament to the ideals that shaped Star Trek in the first place. My head may debate, may worry, may question, but my heart knows the truth. The galaxy feels a little emptier without him. And so, I dream. I dream of a Star Trek where the past and present collide, where Shatner's Kirk returns not to overshadow, but to illuminate. I dream of a scene where his eyes meet those of a new captain, where his voice reminds us of courage, humor, and the audacity to boldly go where no one has gone before, not just physically, but morally, intellectually, and emotionally. I dream of a story that honors his legacy, respects the present, and reminds us all why we fell in love with Star Trek in the first place. In the end, perhaps that is the ultimate lesson. Star Trek has always been about the balance between heart and head, between exploration and caution, between